Often, we think of art, whether we mean going to an art museum, to a play, to a concert, or whatever, as just entertainment, a pleasant diversion, or a social activity, something we do in our free time. But art is so much more. As just a passive observer of all forms of art, let alone as active participants, people experience decreased anxiety and depression, improved emotion regulation. Those with pain have reduced pain and a decreased need for pain medication. Overall sense of well-being is improved. Medically, cardiac mortality goes down, immunologic functioning improves, surgical outcomes improve. Psychiatrically, in addition to the anxiety and depression, art helps with resolving trauma. Looking at how art has helped people in Pueblo. How did you do that? Because I know that you've gone to rural communities as well, places away from Pueblo. And how has that been the same? How's that been different?
You know, one of the things that when we started the project, we had so many schools across the state that wanted us to bring it to their community. What we found out, and it was kind of like, you know, I use a term that my friend uses all the time, building an airplane in the sky. You know, it was one of those things where we really didn't. We realized that it was difficult to. It was not cost effective to bring a whole cast into a community, present the play, because it would just take so much money, and then we had to get the mental health professionals there and things like that. So what we started doing was that my partner and I, we would go into a community and we would work with that community and say, okay, who are your mental health professionals? Who are your your mental health professionals within the school? You know, we work with them. Who are because we're arts based, who are your people that end up performing arts? Who are your teachers who are teaching theater and things like that? So, yeah.
To recreate the same.
So it's about, yes, exactly. It was like, you know, we have this template. And so now it's just like really teaching other communities to how to do this and how to, you know, we did a lot of research. One of the things so it's not just about, you know, because people have to be very cautious about just putting on a play, because sometimes you can cause more harm and you can really just, we have to be really careful to make certain that we don't cause further harm. And one of the ways that we make certain that we don't cause further harm is that I went to the suicide prevention, the national convention, and we talked to people who did things similar to us. There was this one company that did more of a film-based
Not a live.
yeah, it was more film-based, and so we really kind of felt like that it was really important to make certain that we weren't causing further harm, that we considered how we presented things, that we made sure that we had the parameters around the piece, making sure that we had mental health professionals, and that the resources were there as well. So let's say that if a student came and a student watched the play, a student didn't want to engage right then, but the student would be able to take something home, and then in taking something home they could maybe call later on. But also for those students who wanted to, if something did trigger them in any way, shape, or form, they were immediately able to send a text to a certain number, and then that student would be able to meet somebody immediately in a place within the school, and they could have a mental health session with them.
So what did the kids say? What did the performers, what did they tell you what the experience was like for them?
Yeah, I think that when we started, like we all kind of thought that it was about the audience, that it was really something that the audience was going to really get out of it. But then what we found was that the youth that participated within the play, because we studied the human condition as actors, and as we were developing the piece, they found a way of kind of opening up, and we really caution them. We're like, don't overshare, don't share things that you're going to regret later on, that you might have not, that you shouldn't have shared, or So we caution them about that, and we just make certain that they are comfortable. That we always have mental health professionals on site, so that way, if they notice anything and they notice that a student is, because it's sensitive, it really is sensitive material, and I think that that's why you can't just, it's not just putting on a play, and I think that we need to really start looking at all of the materials that we do, that we present in the arts, that way, that we put those, that we look out for the safety of all involved.
How many of those kids went on to continue performing arts?
Well, one of the things that's really interesting, that we noticed that it really kind of started, it began, not so much the performing arts. I mean, I think that they had bought into that already. But the thing is, what they found was that we had kids all of a sudden, like part of the discovery was that as we talked about the situation at schools, kids brought up things like, we have these health classes, but we don't really cover mental health in our health classes. Or if we do, it's so quick that it's kind of just brushed over, And so things like that we took back to the school district, and we said, look, we need to have a more, we need to talk about mental health a little bit more within our health classes that are mandatory, that every student take. We've had kids do things such as they ended up wanting to start a mental health club. I forget the name of it right now, because they went ahead and did the Active Minds. So it's a club that there's a template for it also within schools, and the kids started that. The kids realized that it was important to feel comfortable. Like, there were some that were in the LGBTQIA plus community, and they realized that it was important for them to feel safe, that was part of their mental health, and so they made sure that they researched and got advisors to start a GSA, which is a Gender Sexuality Alliance. It used to be called Gay Straight Alliance, but it's open for any because it's about community. The more that, one of the things, and it's I find it very interesting that the Surgeon General recently said that loneliness is one of that's the pandemic, if you will, that we really have to be concerned about. And so within the confines of the play, those kids experience community, and community is what we all want. It's what we're all looking for in so many ways. And that's where I think a lot of the healing really comes into being. And so I think that's why these kids recognize from that they needed clubs like Active Minds, that they needed a club like a GSA that they can go to and find their community.
It sounds like it really grew.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it started those conversations, that it wasn't this thing that was being shoved off in the corner, or those things that we have to whisper. It's like, let's talk about this. Let's talk about mental health. Let's talk about how you're feeling today, and that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to not be okay.
And so one of those activities is the Traveler's Heart. And for the last, at least 10 10 years, I've been using the Traveler's Heart activity, where I tell a story about hearts. And this is a world where everyone's heart exists. We all wear a heart on the outside, right? Everybody can see each other's heart. Now, some hearts were mangled. I mean, they've looked like they've been some places, and they've got some duct tape and some baling wire and maybe some super duper like kind of holding it together. And others do everything they can to shield their hearts and lock their hearts away so that it doesn't ever get hurt, right? And so when I tell the story with kids, there's the big, and with adults, because they're with college kids, so kids 4 to 104, this activity works, where, you know, everyone in this village, they even in our own community, right, they value the heart that, this illusion of a heart that never gets hurt, that never gets, that is undamaged, right? But in my line of work over the last 25 years, almost I can't think of a door I've ever been behind where others have entered and their heart's not broken in some way. And so I have students draw their hearts, because when I meet people, I imagine what their hearts look like, you know, and how they've been hurt, and also thinking about how they might heal and how I might play a role. We all play a role in people's pain and suffering, as well as in their light and love, and how we heal. And so the Traveler's Heart is all about how we keep going, and it's about resilience. It's about being vulnerable, and I think that, you know, I think that whenever we take our hearts and we lay it out and we sculpt it, we build it, we draw it, right? And we think about how we protect our hearts and keep them malleable. I've had so many students before that they were like, I've got this iron sheet around my heart. No one can enter. Wait a minute, I don't want to be lonely for the rest of my life, right? I want to connect. And others are like, it's a big soggy mess, and it's like a blob, and it's like getting blood everywhere, and it's just gushing out. Other people, some people, they wear their hearts, and it's a grenade, and the pin's been pulled, and you can imagine that cat rolling down the street, and the count has made 10, and it is about to get messy around here, right? And so when I imagine people's hearts, I think I really think that it gives me a window into how we can also help people heal. And sometimes I ask questions about it, or I have students draw their hearts, and I've been. Some people will draw. What? It's good. Yeah. So that's kind of the story about the hearts, really, and how we work with kids. And now we're working on a performance piece where first I've got a group of kids that have built their hearts. One little girl, she's kindergarten, she's got a unicorn heart and a unicorn house, right? And it's adorable. And others, and then they realize, and they've seen me build my heart in front of them. And so it like one day I felt like I got my heart got a hole kicked in it. And so they watched me kick a hole in that heart. And I'm like, and so like being open and vulnerable and saying, you know what, my heart hurts today. Here's how it's played out. And then they also watch me like stitch it back together with some kind of wire, right? Or glue something to it, or put another layer of spray paint on it, because who doesn't love spray paint? Indoor, and not, it's an outdoor activity, spray painting is, apparently. So I don't know, I think that if we all kind of spend a little more time thinking about our hearts and where we're broken, and kind of give it a good pause, and just kind of like recognize that we live in a world that has been very damaged and hurt. So I'm hoping that this helps, and I figure I've been a lot of things in my life. I've had more than 70 jobs, I'm pretty certain, and I'm really certain that I think we just all need a lot more love. And and I think art, as an artist, I've been able to connect more with people as an artist, and I think artists can help more people learn to express themselves. Because right now we're not expressing and we're not connecting, and we're more disconnected than we've ever been before. And that's what I got.
Okay, thank you.
Being said, my being in the arts and the performing arts, it was always a thing of like, I have all this other stuff that is my activism work or my passion work, that to make sure that I bring awareness or that I do things for social justice. And so that started happening. So in my work with that documentary film, I got very much connected with, doing stuff with mental health, and that's when I think it was Michael George who first reached out to me with Friendly Harbor and the NAMI walk, and then I started kind of getting involved in that, and I thought, well, these people need help, producing, and this is something that I'm passionate about, and then that kind of started, and then I was asked to help District 70. Start an arts academy out at Pueblo County High School. And being out at Pueblo County High School, I just, working with the students, and I was a speech and debate coach, and I was the teaching artist coordinator and things like that. And I'm helping in the building of this arts academy. It's a school within a school type of situation. And constantly, kids were coming to me and talking to me about we really need a mental health club, and just seeing, different youth that were struggling with their own mental health, and just knowing the power of using the arts as a platform to bring change. The arts, everyone's afraid to have these conversations. And that always drove me nuts. It's like, I'm like, we've got to talk about it. We have to. I learned when we started working with Friendly Harbor and NAMI and with mental health about stopping the stigma. The only reason why stigmas exist is because we make it shameful. We need to give, I'm about elevating voices and also creating atmospheres where you can have conversations. And that's what theater does. And it's very exciting. And so there's a component with the play No One Hears Unless You Scream. Roxy actually found that piece too. And it was I think the original author's name is David Mattia, and this he said, he's told us like it has good bones. It has good structure to it. Some of the writing was a little antiquated. It was it needed to change a little bit, and there were like some issues that the kids nowadays are not dealing with. But it had the structure enough was enough there to bring up various topics that could help or could were topics that were relevant to some of the things that are concerns of our youth and how they navigate mental health. A lot of it, whether it be, you notice like within the LGBTQ plus community, kids who feel like that they are trying to figure out what their identity is and all of that, and so those struggles, the struggles of people don't realize that more and more. That whether it comes down to self-image or some of the image problems, some of the problems with these are all things that we've covered in the play, and the kids are the ones that come up with it. We wanted the voice to come authentically from the students, and say that we have students who are transgender, so that's more of a relevant conversation that we're trying to have. So anyway, Insanity gave us the platform to do it. So we were able to bring in whole classes and then do the play. We wanted to make sure that the audience saw actual people, and sometimes if you are on stage acting, they're like, well, they're acting a character. So we had a talk back afterwards with the cast of the members of No One Hears Unless You Scream, and they would sit down on the edge of the stage, and the audience was able to ask questions from a facilitator. That facilitator would stand in the gap to be a protector in some ways, to make sure that questions or that we weren't going to do any further harm. It has been an amazing experience. The other thing too is that when you are in the arts, you study the human condition. And you tell the human condition, you expose the human condition. It reflects the sun, or in some ways like a mirror, or it's like art. In some ways, it's like a mirror on humanity.
The idea that we get hurt sometimes, and sometimes life kind of just chews us up sometimes. And the Traveler's Heart experience is about how we get hurt, but we also help each other heal. Whenever I've invited students of all ages to draw their hearts, right? To kind of take their heart out of their chest and kind of lay it on the table and look at it. And when they do that, then they, it's like, how did that feel? And acknowledge. But also acknowledging how we heal. From laughter and connection and being connected to ourselves, being true to ourselves. And guess what? This performance that you guys are putting on, your skits, requires us to be vulnerable.
Don't be like the Don't be like the Don't be like the
You go.
Are we making a star?
Oh no, we're not making a star. We're making magic though. All right.
We're making a Ouija board.
No.
It looks like a star.
All right. Whoa. All right, I'm gonna go over here. Watch out. We're gonna test my and they're so sensitive, and sometimes I think this kind of environment is more conducive to their learning. Not everybody learns the same. Not everybody learns in the same environment. Some of them have sensory challenges where too much sound is just overwhelming to them, and in this environment they feel like they connect with one another, and they're and when one kid's gone or one or two kids gone, it changes the entire dynamic, and we're so reliant on one another, and it's important to recognize what they bring to the table.
But it's really about how do I express myself through sound, and how do I do it in an environment that is safe, but also creative and brave, and not be afraid to show who I am, what I do, and not be afraid to take up space. So far, the parents have really noticed a lot of self-confidence building in these kids, a lot of camaraderie. So from what I understand, a lot of these kiddos have been in a traditional school setting, public school or private school before, and now they are now in a homeschool setting for one reason or another. So in terms of their ability to connect with others, I noticed at the very beginning when I was working with them that they were a little bit more independent, a little bit more reserved, and as they've grown to know each other, they've built these beautiful relationships with one another and been able to truly be themselves. And that's what the parents always tell me, is that, wow, my kid's so expressive. This work about how can we engage people in music in any discipline, basically. So I work a lot with psychology students, education students, and we do things anywhere from how do I build a good classroom environment for my students to study in, to how can I create a community music experience to help uplift my community.
These kids we've had since the start of the school year. There are a lot. They've really grown into their personalities and their artistic abilities. We did an art show that was amazing right before Christmas break. We're getting ready to do a big performance right at the end of this school year.
So yes, performance art, visual art, and other forms of creativity provide entertainment. But art also plays a significant role in our mental health and healing, our connections to one another, and our overall well-being. For those interested, references and abstracts are included in this QR code. But first, go make a painting, sing a song, read a poem, or go to the theater. Later, read up on the many benefits associated with viewing, participating, and creating art.